CBS News Chief Congressional Correspondent Nancy Cordes and CBS News Political Correspondent Ed O'Keefe join us to discuss all this. Welcome to both of you. All right, Ed, let's take a look at some of those exit polls about why there was such massive turnout. We learned that 2/3 of those who voted said they were voting to send a message to Trump.
A fourth of voters casted in support of the president. 4 in 10 cast votes to oppose him. A third said it had nothing to do with him. But that signals that the president, much as he wanted it to be, much as we expected it would be, it became about him.
What about the number of moderate Republicans who lost their seats in the House?
They're a dying breed. At this point, we're down to basically Will Hurd of Texas, who I know will be here later this morning. Guys like Carlos Curbelo in the Miami area lost. Mike Kaufman in the Denver suburbs. Those have been longtime Democratic targets. And in a year like this, they lost.
And those are the moderates who didn't decide to retire because they took a look at the environment and saw that it was inhospitable to Republicans in swing districts.
And Nancy, you cover the Senate, of course. Democrats lost a number of seats. Republicans enlarged their majority.
Right. And Democrats, frankly, were stunned. They thought perhaps they might lose the Heidi Heitkamp race in North Dakota or Claire McCaskill in Missouri. They were not expecting that Joe Donnelly in Indiana would lose. And now Senator Bill Nelson of Florida also on the cusp of losing. I was talking to Senator Chris Coons of Delaware, who was not up for re-election, but is now going to have to say goodbye to a number of his colleagues. He said he's heartbroken, and he's worried about what this means for the party because you have so many of the moderate deal makers in the Senate Democratic caucus leaving.
Meaning the Democrats who were living in Republican states.
Correct. And they have to cut deals to survive.
Right. What does this mean, if anything, for Chuck Schumer? With the Democratic Party now, you know, they lost some of their races. Did the Democrats think, well, you know, structurally it was just a bad year for us, or are they going to look for new leadership?
Right. They are going to want to avoid drawing any lessons from this race because they're going to say, well, look, it was just the map. We were up in all of these red states. You know, what did you think was going to happen? But there are going to be some Democrats making the case. First of all, we got to figure out what's going on in Florida. This is supposed to be a swing state, and yet even in a year where everything should have been going the Democrats' way, it didn't.
Well, just to follow on, John, what about all of those Democrats who lost in red states in the Senate? All voted against Kavanaugh. The exit polls show that was a factor.
Yeah, whether it was the factor, whether it was a contributing factor, I think we're going to be sorting that out for several weeks to come. Republicans would like you to think this morning that it had something to do with it, and certainly we know that it helped drive Republican interest and energy and turnout in the closing week.
It's hard not to draw a correlation.
Right. Yeah. But, you know,
and
again, the math. But these were states that the president had won by big numbers. They were already going to be on, you know, they were going to be big targets anyway, and it may have contributed to it.
But look at Joe Manchin, who won.
Right.
He voted for.
And he voted for him.
Yeah. Right. But then you got someone like Phil Bredesen in Tennessee, who was a potential pickup for the Democratic Party, very popular in Tennessee, even though he's a Democrat. He said that he would have voted for Kavanaugh, and he lost.
By a significant margin, too.
Yeah.
Give us your sense, then, what would have happened in those cases in a Democratic constituency where women are very important to turning out your vote if those senators had said, I'm going to vote for Kavanaugh. I mean, there would have been a downside in their own.
Which was the calculation for Joe Donnelly and for Claire McCaskill especially, because they understood that they needed to drive out support that they did have there and hope that there were enough independents elsewhere they didn't have them. By the way, if you think this was topsy-turvy, remember that in 2020, Republicans will have the problem that Democrats had this year.
Right.
More seats to defend in blue states.
Yeah. If there was one moment of unity last night, 8 in 10 voters said they want more women in power in Congress holding that political seats.
And women made moderate gains last night. We're going to end up at the end of the day with most likely more women senator than we had before. So instead of 23, you'd have 24.
We saw women making gains in the governorships race as well.
They did. And moderate gains in the House as well. They go up a little bit from their record, but still a long way to go.
Yeah. Ed and Nancy, we could keep talking for hours like we did last night, but unfortunately we don't have that much time this morning. Great to see you again.
We're here if you need us.
we know where to find you.
You're like CBSN, always on.